Hey y'all, my name is Erin, and this is going to be week 2 of recovery from pacemaker surgery, and this is going to be way shorter than my week 1. I will say the first week is easily the hardest week of the recovery process. The second week has gone pretty smooth. The pain is pretty much not there anymore. I've gone from not being able to get comfortable and really sleep at night to I can sleep on both of my sides now, and it's not that bad. Sometimes it gets a little bit painful. If I lay on my right side, sometimes I can feel it pulling that direction. And sometimes if I lay on my left side, it kind of, I don't know if you can see it in here, but it kind of will like poke. Starting off my second week, I ended up coming home and I had a little bit of a fall and I had to catch myself from the fall, and that made this develop some bruising and a little bit of a hematoma, which I got a little bit nervous about, but it's totally fine and everything went away pretty quickly. I went to get my original bandage changed at my doctor's office, and I was hoping to not have to have any bandage on it anymore, and I was hoping that it would be healed good enough that I can go back to school and work in the laboratory with bacteria and all that stuff. But when they took off the bandaging from last time, you can kind of see spots where it's like, I don't know if it's blood, but you can see where it's kind of oozing through. It wasn't healed as well as they wanted it to be, so they cleaned it up really well, put a new bandage on it, and I have to have this bandage on it for another week. Annoying things about having the bandages, I can't get it wet, so I can't really shower. I have to take baths instead of showering, and I was not able to get a release to go back to working in the lab at school, which sucks a little bit because I'm missing a lot of things, but again, it is what it is, and that's fine. I will say one of the other annoying things about having the surgery and not being allowed to lift my arm up higher than this is I can't shave my armpit. Which is a little bit annoying to have armpit hair growing, and it's also kind of not really embarrassing, but embarrassing. I just don't want people to think that I'm nasty, and it's getting a little hot outside, so if I want to wear a tank top or something, people are liable to see my armpit hairs coming out because they're starting to get a little bit long and it's uncomfortable and they're prickly, and I really just want to be able to shave my armpit, but I can't lift that arm up like this to be able to shave my armpit. So that's a thing that's gonna suck because my doctor told me that I can't lift my arm above there for 6 to 8 weeks. So that's a little bit frustrating. Other than that, the second week has been pretty uneventful. The pain that the muscle pain that I was having has completely gone away. Able to sleep on my sides, sleep pretty much normal. Since the pain has gone away, I have to be really careful about when I'm sleeping, not to accidentally lift my arm up, because a lot of times to readjust my pillow, I lift both of my arms up like this to pull my pillow up. So I just have to be really careful because the pain isn't stopping me from doing that anymore. I did buy a arm brace that has a strap that goes around my body so that when it did start to get to this place where I will just move around like this in my sleep, that I'm gonna start wearing that in my sleep so that I don't end up messing it up. And so the reason why I can't lift my arm up above, 180 degrees, well, your arm is at 90 degrees, but that's 180 degrees, whatever. The reason why I can't lift my arm up higher than this is because they don't want the leads that are in your heart to end up being pulled on at all. They want to give it 6 to 8 weeks in order for those leads that they screwed into your heart to get completely embedded into you so that they don't get pulled out. I mean, it's something that can happen sometime in the future. It's always a possibility, but when it's brand new and it's healing, they want those leads to get embedded in there as good as possible. Again, for 6 to 8 weeks, I still can't lift anything over 10 pounds, so that kind of sucks too. I guess other than that, life has pretty much gone back to normal. I was able to go on a 2-mile walk the other day, which was really, really nice. I went on a half a mile walk with my dog today. Pacemaker seems to be working really well. I do have some small concerns. Yesterday, my heart rate on 3 separate occasions went down into the 30s and 40s, which concerns me because my pacemaker is not supposed to allow my heart rate to go down that low. Now, it wasn't for an extended period of time, but since I've had this for a little over 2 weeks now, it's concerning because in that entire 2 weeks, it has not gone below its threshold at all, even for a split second, because it kicks on immediately when it senses that my heart is slowing down too slow or it's stopping or whatever. And yesterday it did that 3 times. I just hope my pacemaker is working, but it is my Apple Watch telling me these things, so it is a possibility that my Apple Watch is wrong. But honestly, my Apple Watch has never been wrong in the past, and if my Apple Watch has showed that in the last couple weeks of me having this, it is literally a flat line at 60 and not going under 60 at all, and then randomly yesterday it's spiking down 3 times, getting super, super low, and during those times I did experience symptoms. Makes me a little bit nervous. Another thing is, so it automatically will check your pacemaker leads throughout the day. It's only supposed to do it once a day. It does a ventricular, well, I have a dual chamber pacemaker, so I have 1 lead in my atrium and 1 lead in my ventricle, and they do a ventricular pacing test and an atrial pacing test to make sure each of the leads are pacing properly. The ventricular pacing is very uncomfortable, makes me short of breath, and will make me cough, and scares me a little bit because it feels very similar to when I had ventricular tachycardia in the past, which is a deadly arrhythmia. So I just kind of have to tell myself it's just checking my pacemaker leads, it's going to be okay. And my Apple Watch shows when it's ventricular pacing. It doesn't show when it's atrial pacing, but it shows up on my Apple Watch when it's ventricular pacing on a little EKG. So I know when it's my pacemaker versus my heart messing up. And I haven't had VTach in a really long time, so it still scares me, but it is what it is. A few concerns, but other than that, everything's been really good, and I think the healing is going good. Another thing is, it's only supposed to do the ventricular pace testing once a day, and in the past like 3 or 4 days, it has been doing it multiple times a day. So the first day it did it multiple times a day, it did it twice, and then for the next 2 or 3 days in a row, I can't remember, it has done it 3 times in a row. And I don't know why it's doing that, but it will be 3 times every hour on the dot. So for example, looking at my Apple Watch information here, it did the ventricular pacing test at 1:31 p.m., 2:31 p.m., and 3:31 p.m. The day before, it did it at exactly 3:31 p.m., 4:31 p.m., and 5:31 p.m. I don't know why it's doing it 3 times in a row. And the day before was when it did it twice in a row. So it did it at 8:31 p.m. and 9:31 p.m. The times are a little bit weird. Okay, and then the day before it also did it twice. It did it at 10:31 p.m. and 11:31 p.m. And it'll do it at completely random times, like another day it did it at 12:31 a.m. If I'm sleeping, it wakes me up because it's very uncomfortable for me, makes me think of my ventricular tachycardia, and again, it makes me short of breath. And when it does the pacing testing, it does it at a tachycardic level. So like 101, which is really not that high, but when you're sleeping and your heart rate is usually 60 when you're sleeping, 101 is a lot. 104, 100, 107, 108. So that's kind of around the pacing when it's checking all that stuff. I start going back to school again tomorrow, so I'm excited about that, but honestly wish I had a little bit more rest. Another thing is my body needs a lot of rest when I'm recovering. The first week after I had the surgery done, my body was needing so much sleep that I was sleeping for an average of 15 hours and 54 minutes per night, which is a lot. And there was a day where I slept for a full 20 hours because my body was just completely exhausted. For week 2, my average sleeping time has been 14 hours and 48 minutes. That is a lot, but my body just gets really, really, really exhausted when I need to recover from something, and my body needs a lot of sleep. So I'm happy about going back to school, but at the same time, my body is telling me that I still need a whole lot more rest and a whole lot more sleep in order to recover from this. So I guess that's the only downside of it, but it'll be okay. And another thing is I keep getting a little bit of new bruising where the edge of my pacemaker is right here. I guess from me moving around, I think a lot of it happens in my sleep when I'm laying on my side. It's like in my armpit, which is not a good spot for it, but based on the anatomy and the vein that he put it in my, I don't know if it's auxiliary vein or axillary vein. I have not taken A&P, but that vein is the one that he put it in instead of putting in the subclavian vein. The vein he put it in is shown to work better and have less complications, but the downside of that is it's like in my armpit, and like when I lift my arm up to put deodorant on, I'm like rubbing my pacemaker. That's pretty much it for my summarization of the second week of my recovery. Has been a lot less dramatic than the first week. Pain is gone, doing really well. I will add on to this video how the third week goes. It is now Monday. On Friday I go back to get this changed and cleaned, and we'll see if I get released to go back to working in the lab at school, hopefully so, and be able to get an idea of kind of what those scars is going to look like and stuff like that. But hoping for good news, and I will come back on here with an update once week 3 is over. So it is now the end of week 3 of recovering from pacemaker surgery, and I am very pleased that it has been pretty much completely uneventful. A couple things that I completely forgot about during week 2. My doctor had to go out of the country for family reasons, emergency things, so the person who's been checking my incision and replacing bandaging has been a cover doctor who's been covering for him, which thankfully he's like the sweetest guy ever, so that's a good thing. Another thing is, finally, just yesterday and today, I finally gained back all the weight that I had lost from being extremely sick from those antibiotics that they had me on. I do not have a lot of bandaging on it anymore. I do still have these steri strips on it. He doesn't want me to take those off because they will fall off on their own. It is a little bit red and irritated, but now it has at least turned into a scab instead of being an open wound that requires having an actual bandage over it. And that means I have also been released to go back and work in the lab at school again. I have missed so many labs. Today I was doing so much schoolwork, and I was doing all the work for 6 labs that I ended up missing just last week. That's a lot of information. And lab stuff is hands-on stuff, so if you miss it, you miss it, and I can't get that back. But the best I can do is just read about it and hope I can retain the information, and then when I do my lab practical in the future, hopefully I'll be able to do it. And any grade is better than a 0, but I'm one of those people who, if I don't get an A, I get very upset. Let me put it that way. So that's what it's looking like. Everything feels completely normal. There's nothing that hurts about it anymore. Normal healing things. The scab itself itches, so I just have to make sure that I'm not scratching it, not accidentally scratching it or anything like that, but it looks good. I'm gonna see if I can show you the size. So this is how large my pacemaker is. This is the bottom of it here, and the top of it is all the way up here. And I want to like move it so you can see it, but so like this is going around. Let me trace it for you. Actually goes down pretty far. So my pacemaker is fairly large. Since I'm really young, he gave me the one that has the extra long battery life, so it can last from 10 to 17 years. He could have put a smaller pacemaker in, and those ones last, I think they say 7 to 10 years, but of course, since I'm so young, we want it to last as long as possible. So no other issues with my pacemaker acting up or acting weird. I don't think I've really had any symptoms other than symptoms every now and then from my like tachybrady issues and my heart rate just dropping out of nowhere. Even though the lower limit is set at 60, it's still a shock to your body, and your blood's not pumping properly when your heart rate is going from 145 all the way down to 60, especially if you're going for a walk. And sometimes just when I'm standing up cooking, like I was cooking breakfast a little while ago and was feeling kind of dizzy, weak in my legs and things like that. But I guess those are just issues that you have to deal with when you have heart problems. A pacemaker doesn't fix everything, but I am supposed to reassess that setting that helps with that was turned off when I did have to go to the emergency room for it. But the cover doctor does not want to touch anything. He doesn't want to do anything. So he just wants to wait until my doctor comes back into town, which when I saw him on Friday, which was 2 days ago, to get this removed, the bandaging that was over it removed, he told me that my doctor is actually back in town. So I do have an appointment scheduled with him at the end of April, which is a whole month from now, and to me that's just a little bit too long. So on Monday I'm gonna give them a call and see if they will move my appointment up earlier. But sleeping's normal, everything is normal. The biggest issues with it being week 3 is that I'm not experiencing the pain or the pulling from the stitches or any of that anymore. So I have to be really careful about not lifting my arm up in the air and not picking things up that are too heavy and just not doing things that I'm not supposed to do, because I don't even think about it. So it's difficult to, it's difficult to not do that. And also I don't know exactly how much 10 pounds is. So I got some, I moved into this place fairly new. I got some furniture in the mail, and I'm just putting the furniture together, and I'm having to pull really hard to get the screws in, and I was definitely putting way more pressure and pulling on it harder than 10 pounds and didn't realize it until I started getting a little bit sore. I thought, oh, I probably shouldn't be doing this. So I got one of my chairs put together, and then the other one is halfway put together, and I just let it sit there. I have about another month before I'm allowed to lift my arm above shoulder level and lift anything over 10 pounds according to my doctor, but hopefully I can see him soon. We can get some settings changed and help a little bit more with the symptoms that I'm having, but I'm not having daily issues like I was, and I'm not having pre-syncope. I'm not feeling like I'm gonna pass out. I might be feeling like a little bit weird, but I'm not afraid that I'm going to die, let me put it that way. So that is a good thing. And going back to school, everyone was excited. Well, everyone. The like 3 people in my microbiology group were excited to see me, so that was really nice. Again, sleeping completely normal. I can sleep on my sides, and I'm someone who has a habit of sleeping on my stomach as well. I've been sleeping on my stomach. I have been sleeping in completely normal positions. Again, just trying to make sure that I'm not waking up with my arm above my head or using my arm to move my pillow above my head. It's looking good. It probably could look a little bit better, but I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, so sometimes my skin doesn't heal as well as it's supposed to, so which is another reason why they're taking some precautions and keeping these steri strips on it to make sure it doesn't open up, because that pacemaker is pressing on. It's so large, but it presses on the actual incision point there. So that is my week 2 and week 3 of pacemaker surgery, recovery. Everything has, aside from the first week and a couple little things here and there, everything has gone really smooth. They say a lot of the first few weeks and months is kind of modifying settings on your pacemaker to make sure that it's working for you. So I'm excited to see my actual doctor, my surgeon, and get some of these settings changed and just keep on trucking. But if you have watched this video, thank you for watching this video. If you are someone who is getting ready for pacemaker surgery, or watching this because you have a family member who's getting ready for pacemaker surgery, even though I had some complications and the healing process was a little bit rough for me, rougher than most people, I would tell you, do not be afraid at all. It's fine. It's not that bad. Everything's gonna be okay, and as long as you have a good doctor and you trust your doctor, it's gonna be okay. I live by myself. I've been alone throughout the whole process, with the exception of the first week when I was really sick and my dad was having to take care of me. But it's not that bad, and it really is a life-changing thing. It's hard not to be scared. I had like a full-blown panic attack the night before my surgery when I was packing up my bag just in case I ended up having to stay the night. Another thing is, when you do get the surgery, there's different levels of anesthesia they can give you. Sometimes they will just give you a local anesthesia, which only numbs your skin in the area they're working on. Sometimes they will put you under twilight sedation. So they're always going to numb the area. So they're always going to do local anesthesia, but they might do twilight sedation, where you more than likely won't remember anything that happened, but sometimes people do. It's not full-blown anesthesia. They kind of just put you in a twilight state, and then there's being put completely under. And from the complications I had from my EP study, which was done under twilight anesthesia, and then a whole mess of stuff happened. I crashed. They had to put me under general and intubate me and everything. So they kind of knew the complications that I could have going into this, so they immediately were like, we're doing general anesthesia. And I was like, thank goodness, because I would rather you just put me out. So anyways, thank you for watching this video. Subscribe if you want to subscribe and see more videos like this. I'm going to be getting a port placed here in 2 weeks, I think, because I get infusions every week. So I'm also going to document my port placement procedure and the healing process of that, and Lord, hopefully I don't have any complications from that and the healing goes a little bit better than this. But that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you in my next video.